This is a view that I want to sketch. We're in a place called Knoll Hill, and this is a lovely old, well, I don't know whether it's a barn conversion. This is all live. It's an outside broadcast, so our horse may well trot past in a moment, or a lorry or whatever. I hope you can hear me, and let's see how we get on. And this is just to prove that I really did sit outside to sketch. I'm perched very precariously on my little stool. And this is the final sketch I did, and I'll show you how I got there. So when I'm outside sketching from life, I think it's important not to take too much stuff, because if you end up carrying everything from your studio, you're just not going to bother. I've got this little concertina sketchbook that is a Hannah Muller sketchbook. It's watercolour paper, it's really nice, and I do love a concertina. Good idea to have a clip just to keep things together. My all-important kitchen towel. These bags are quite handy. This is sort of reusable bag that you buy your fruit and veg in from the supermarket. Love pen and wash, so I've got a couple of fine liners. These are a Hoo-Hoo fine liners, but as long as they're waterproof, they are UV resistant, then that's fine. I've got a little Rosa watercolour box for later on. I've got some dual tip markers. These are from Smith's. They're like Tombows, but they're about a third the price. And I've got a set of greys because it's a good way of being able to add a bit of tone and shadow without having to put extra water on your paper. And given that we're in Britain, things are not going to dry quickly. I've got water brushes, which are again a really convenient way. They haven't got lovely points, but we're not doing really precise watercolour. It is very sketchy. So, and I think that's, oh, and a little spray bottle. I think that's all my equipment. What you will have noticed is that I haven't got a pencil and an eraser, because the temptation, if you know you can rub your line out, you just become really indecisive. What you can do with these dual tip markers, because they're water soluble, if you do want some guidelines, you can always use a pale grey to start with, and then it'll just disappear into your work as you add colour later on. Or you can be super brave and go straight in with your fine liner. I like to just have a quick think, and what I'm doing, you won't be able to see this, but I'm just holding my arm out straight and looking at some of the angles and just thinking how it's going to fit onto my page. The building is actually about as tall as it is long because of the perspective. So let's just get the basic shapes in. I'm sitting on a little camping stool, and I've fallen off it once already. But so if you suddenly see a wobble and my legs going in the air, I'm on rather uneven ground. So I'm looking at the big shapes, and I say these lines are just going to disappear in a moment as soon as I get some watercolour on here. So don't worry about those. And I might exaggerate some of the angles. There's sort of two parts to the building, so the further part, it's not all in a straight line. I mean, this looks like it might be, I don't know, the core of it probably goes back to the 1700s or something. There's a really nice little bit of a roof sticking up here, and we've got the chimney there. Whether I put in that television aerial or not, I don't know. I can see that goes behind, so that needs to sort of line up. I'm playing with a couple of the angles just to make it look a bit friendlier and jauntier, I think. And then we've got a lot of foliage that comes over here and obscures the view. Got that. But what I've really liked, and why I'm sitting here, is we've got the lane just going round the corner and leading our eyes, and then we've got a really big tree that sort of comes and frames the end of the building. So I think that is, give or take, the way I want to do this. I'm just going to check that angle. That doesn't look right. I think that's probably just a bit steeper. And I'm not measuring the perspective lines. I'm doing it by eye and I'm exaggerating some of them. So we've got that lane and then it actually splits and a bit of the lane comes and goes down here, and the main road, I don't think you'd call it a main road, sort of goes round there. So I might play with some of those lines just to lead us in. And when you're sketching like this, I'm not aiming for super accuracy, to be honest. I'm aiming to capture the spirit of the place and the character of the place, rather than, you know, whether it's got the exact right number of windows or whether the television aerial is pointing exactly south or north or whatever. I'm trying to get the feel of that place. So having mapped that in like that, I'm going to grab, what should we do? I've got a 0.5 and a 0.2. I've got a 0.3 there. Let's hedge our bets. And then we come in and we try to keep it all loose and flowing. So where you start, I guess, is up to you. If you're feeling a bit nervous about starting, don't start on the focal point, because then if you make a bit of a wrong move, it doesn't matter. And then once you've sort of settled in and got into your stride, you can start to work on the more important things. So that's why I've started with that sort of hedge and foliage, because frankly, if I get that wrong, who knows? It's just a hedge. It's not like it's really important. And then that sort of bigger coming forward, and we can sort of put that up. I'm not quite sure whether I've got this bit long enough. So I do like to query my drawing as I go along. I don't sort of take it as that I've got it right first time. So if I think that's a bit off, then I will change it. Nothing is sacred. So I do think, looking at this, that maybe this front part of the building is a little bit bigger. So let's move that triangle along and just exaggerate that. Now, because I've moved that, I'm going to have to move that little back roof bit. Oh, I can feel myself wobbling off my stool again. So it will be funny if you just suddenly see me disappear. Might edit that out, save my blushes. Yeah, I think that's better, because now I can get a slightly steeper angle on there and it'll make it more interesting. When I'm sketching like this, I try to get those big shapes in as quickly as possible, because in my experience, I reckon drivers are taught to come and park in front of artists. And so often you're out and about and someone just parks in front of your view. It happens time and time again. So it is a good idea to get your big shapes in. Oops, the wind is blowing. I'm just holding on to the tripod with the camera because I don't want that going over. That would be an expensive fail. So if there was a wobble there, it's actually quite a windy day. See, I was using a sort of continuous line, and it's a nice way of getting information in quickly. So you're leaving your pen on the paper and getting a lot of information down quite quickly, and even going across blank areas, and our eye sort of reads that as detail. It's not detail, but our eye sort of reads it as. So, these are very wonky windows. It's such an old house, I really wanted to capture the wonkiness of it. And it's got some wonderful wooden beams that you can see through the brickwork. So let's get some of those in. If they're not quite in the right place, it doesn't matter, as long as I've got that sort of character. There's a lovely diagonal one there. I mean, I'm sure if the owner comes out and says, what are you doing? And, you know, they think I'm casing the joint, I will obviously reassure them that I'm just a strange artist who has driven past their house so often and thought it looks gorgeous. Just keep going, we'll edit that out. Or maybe we could have a bloopers reel, that would be quite funny. Okay, we had a wobble there, but luckily my very kind assistant who is helping, big shout out to Adam, he caught the tripod before it fell over totally and broke my iPad, because I would have been quite sad at that point. Not sure if it's insured, probably is. Anyway, so I've roughly put in those, and I'm coming to this plant. I don't know what sort of plant it is, but it's got bigger leaves, and I am sort of exaggerating those leaves in that continuous line, because as things come towards us, they're going to be slightly larger and we will see more detail, whereas say this far back here, well, we can't see anything, and by the time we get to the trees back here, they are just sort of shapes and blobs. We'll come around the corner. Let's just get this window there. There is a window peeping out above this bush here. There's something on the house. I don't know what that is. Maybe some sort of aerial thing. Don't know. It looks like a microphone. Perhaps you've got a secret listening station. It'd be quite fun, wouldn't it? So we'll put that, and then there's this horseshoe mac tree, I believe that's called, and it's got sort of branches, so we'll bring some of that to bring this foliage forward. How much of those I put in, I don't know, but again, I'm sort of trying to capture the feel of that, because say I had to stop here, I could go home and fill in these branches very easily, because I've sort of started to get the feel of them and the sort of mark that I want to do. We'll come down here. There's post here to stop you parking in front of their garden. We are parked behind. We are not parked on their grass. So when you do something like this, you have every legal right to draw anything from public land, but you know, there's no point trying to upset people, is there? So do think where you park and what you do and how suspiciously you act. There's another pole over there, and then, well, foliage of some description. Right, with that in place, I think it would be a really good idea to get some colour on. So I'm just grabbing, I've got a little spare, oops, burnt sienna there, because I cannot paint anything without burnt sienna. Let me show you this little box. You will never have the right colours, just deal with it. So I've got 12 colours in here. You'll never ever have exactly the right colours when you're painting outside. So you need to learn to sort of improvise. Just finding that piece of kitchen towel to make sure my water brush is clean. If you haven't used water brushes before, they are so good for this sort of thing. You just unscrew the end, bung water in there, and then screw it up. If you're finding yours hard to unscrew, for some bizarre reason, they always screw in the opposite direction than you would expect. So instead of, I don't know, was it righty-tighty, lefty-loosey or whatever, usually they're the other way round. And then to use them, all you do is squeeze the handle and water comes out of the end. A bit of kitchen towel is useful for cleaning off. I am going to use lots of that gorgeous burnt sienna, because, well, gosh, that's brick, isn't it? And let's see, I've got some just sap green there, which is very green. Let's put some sap green and put some blue in it, and just mix up a few puddles of colour. I think I might need more burnt sienna. And I don't have to be overly precise with what I'm doing, because that adds to the character. This is a wonky building, so that's fine. That's a sort of burnt umber there. Might be quite a handy sort of one to have. But I want this to be jolly and happy, so I might mix up some nice yellow, because it's actually a sunny day. It's very windy, it's quite cool, but it is sunny. So let's, a few puddles, and let's just go. So let's grab some of that. And in the distance, things are going to be sort of paler and less defined. When you're doing any sort of tree, it's nice to leave a bit of space in it so that the birds got somewhere to nest. But apart from that, it doesn't matter. I am fond of a little splatter, so if we're trying to do things loosely, we can always splatter some, just to give a feeling of leaves and air in there if we want. Then some of this will come down. It's what, July now, so everything's starting to look a little bit dried out, which is a miracle after the winter we had. So maybe I could introduce some yellow to show that we're starting to get sort of dry grass. This is all in shadow. The sun is over here, so I'm going to be using those grey pens later just to get some of that shadow. As we're coming forward, this is a lot more yellow. We could just emphasize that. So by using the colours, you can start to create sort of aerial perspective. So blue further away, warmer colours come close to you, and we could even put in a bit of that lovely warm burnt sienna. It's not really there, but it doesn't matter. And again, I might just, oh, that was a splat, bring some splatter forward. Don't like that line, so let's just take it out. So I've framed my building, and then I'm going to use some of the burnt sienna here. Nice to leave a bit of white. Let's bring some of that burnt umber or umber. I don't actually know what colour that is. I will look it up at some point. Now, can you see here where I got the triangle of the end wrong right at the beginning? As soon as I put the water over it, that starts to dissolve away, and I got it wrong because you're watching this, but no one, when they see the final thing, will know. It's fine. So going in with pen doesn't have to be as scary as you think it is. It's got sort of mutedy green window, sort of painted window, so we might bring some of that in. Can't see a lot of that, but just bring some in. We're trying to paint this very, very loosely, and I'm going to come back in with another layer. So, the van hasn't come and parked in front of me. Brilliant. That means I can capture more information. But if I stopped here, I would sort of have captured lots and lots of information, and it would be fine. What shall I do? I'm just mixing up a bit of muddy something or other that will go onto the road. Don't need to do that fully. And, at this point, you've got to say, God, that looks a mess. And that's fine. This is usually the point, of course, where someone will come and look over your shoulder and think, she's not very good. But it doesn't matter. This is our foundation, our basis, and then we can come in, depending on how much time we've got, how much inclination we've got, we can basically add in as much detail as we want. I am not Mrs. Detail, so I'm just putting a little phthalo blue through there for no other reason than I like phthalo blue. I know the road isn't blue, but I think that's rather nice, and I might just put a little, just to tie some of this together. I just felt it needed it. We need to let that dry. I'm going to pop those down there as well, and then we can go back to our pens. Again, lines are going to be thicker the closer they are to you, so we might use a slightly thicker one. That's a 0.5. If you've only got one, don't worry, just improvise. And I mean, the joy of sketching like this is that you have to improvise. You have not got everything and all the comfort of your studio or your kitchen table or wherever you actually usually draw. But what you've lost in comfort, you make up for in spontaneity and in the life that you breathe in to your drawing. It is really hard to have a super lively drawing from a photograph, whereas even the most incomplete sketch that you've done for life will have really rich memories attached to it. So I will remember, every time I look at this sketch, I will remember falling off my stool. I will remember that it was a windy day. I'll remember, oh, I don't know, just what happens. Oh, that's still too wet. So if you go over a wet area with one of these pens, it doesn't work. So while it's wet, I could actually grab my brush pens and I can just show you how well those work. So it's got a brush tip at one end and say a bullet tip at the other. Oops, let's put that back on and not lose your lids. And they are just brilliant because in one stroke, you can do, say, your windows. And I haven't added any extra wetness to this page drying. This set is in different shades of grey, and the warm greys and pale greys, and it's just really handy way of adding, say, oh, someone coming. Told you that someone always comes at the mucky point of your drawing. So we can just start to put in some of that, and we could maybe shade some of these and break that up. It's quite dark under this particular bush back here, but say I didn't like that. The great thing about these pens is that they blend beautifully with water, so I can always blend it in. I can either leave them as sort of really nice strokes like that for things like the windows, or I can blend them in with water if I need to. You know, that's up to me. So they are really versatile. The other thing about doing this sort of drawing is it gets to the point of the more you look, the more you see. So I hadn't seen when I sketched that there's another tree. It doesn't quite go behind this little triangular window, but there is another tree there, and that frames it nicely. It's not actually quite in that place, but I am using artistic license to bring that there. And you just keep looking and suddenly think, oh, I didn't realise that was there. Or I must have driven past this house a million times and never realised that whatever it is I've spotted. Having done all that loose preparation, I am now going to actually put in a bit more detail. I don't want to get tight because, well, that's not my style and it's not what I enjoy, but I'm just going to start putting more details. So like the top of that chimney has got some sort of layers to it. I do love a good chimney. Coming round the top of this building here, there are actually a few more tiles that you can see. I'm not going to put every tile in either because there must be thousands, but say on this building you've got some guttering, so just putting in a few marks immediately starts to imply that there's stuff going on, and I'll come round and just tighten up some of that. Oh, there's a tandem going by. That's rather exciting. I wonder if there'll be... Hello. Matching lycra. Wonder where they're going, because that's a dead end, because we just went down there before we parked up. Maybe they know something that we don't know. So I'm putting in some more of this foliage here, and I'm really trying to alter my marks so that we've got those bigger ones there, these are more vertical, just to create layers of interest. So that's starting to be better. Then I'm going to, this is dry now, so I can come back over here and I can make those slightly more precise. When you're sketching outside, do think about your comfort and safety as well. Just be aware of your stuff if you are sketching in a busy place. I find having usually if I'm sketching where there's lots of people, I use a sort of cross the shoulder bag, or crossbody I should say bag, because then I can get stuff out of it very easily, but it is quite secure. Whereas if you've got a rucksack, there is a potential, I guess, someone could come up behind you and lift something out of that because you're so engrossed in what you're doing. So it is important that you think about that and your security in terms of, you know, I'm dropping all my pens now, that you don't want to put yourself into any danger from cars, from, well, whatever, because it's so easy to be really engrossed in your drawing and what you're doing that you're not fully aware of what's going on around you. I don't feel I've got this corner quite sharp enough here, so I'm just putting in, because it's one closest to us, just some of the implication of those bricks. Again, the bricks I'm putting in are probably way too big for what they are, and I'm not going to put every brick in this house, but I'm just trying to imply what's going on. Ditto with the tiles on the roof. I don't need to put everyone in, I just need to show that there are tiles there. But those ridge tiles, I rather like the ridge tiles, they're sort of catching the light, so I'm going to extend that to make it a bit more curvy. I just think that looks rather a bit more jolly than having it all straight, because I don't think there's probably a straight line in this house. So this roof is super wonky. Now I can see there's some timbers coming here. Presumably those are the floor timbers from the top floor that's been added on. I'd love to know some of the history of this house. Put that, and then say if I come down here, again maybe put something more going on here, the edge of the grass. Simply it'll bring that front corner towards us, and then nothing there. Maybe in this road I might put some of the stones and the gravel, and that again will bring the front towards us. There are a few quite strong sort of bits going on here, but don't want to get too caught up in that detail. So if I was getting fed up or it started to rain, I could stop at this point very, very easily. If I want to grab a bit more detail, I can keep going. That choice is entirely mine. If you can hear some tinkling in the background, there is a dog walker who has about 3,000 dogs who's just parked behind us, and well, they're just coming back from their walk. So we may have visitors in a moment. They've been really well behaved, but if we suddenly get surrounded by loads of dogs, it would be quite funny. So I'm going back to my pens to just put in a little bit more detail. The other thing they're quite nice for, you could use them for just putting in a bit, sort of some of the brick shapes, using that brush end. If you wanted to put in lines that aren't as dark as the black lines, you can of course use the other side. I don't tend to do that. It's quite like the strength of the black lines. So this is just a way of slightly emphasising what's going on. Maybe a slightly darker one might be better for some of that woodwork. That's a bit too dark. Maybe that's the one. It's a sort of mid. I am I do YouTube videos, so I'm just trying to do a YouTube video about how to sketch outdoors and some tips and tricks. But we thought this would be quite nice and quiet down here. I do love your kitten, how your dogs are so well controlled, and yeah, so that's what we're doing, and then I'll edit it down, and just thought, so because I wanted to do the cafe up on the A4, but I thought that was quite noisy and public.
Yeah. The background sound would drown out any instructions you're giving.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. So we thought if we practiced here, and if this works and we're feeling brave, we could do that, and failing that, we could go and get a burger for our lunch anyway. Indeed.
Lovely day.
Thank you. Bye. So people are often quite nervous about sketching outside, and it's that whole thing of, oh, are people going to come and look and think what I've done is useless and everything? But you heard that interaction. So that was the dog walker, just be curious. I bet she never sees anyone down here. People are really positive. And, you know, if your drawing isn't the, and even if someone was negative, let's face it, you're never going to see them again. And you can just think to yourself, oh, for goodness sakes, if you're so good, let's see you do it. So, I mean, tips, I would say if you're in a busy place, always try to sit with your back to a wall, because then people can't look over your shoulder. A sketch buddy is always nice because there is safety in numbers, and it's a lot nicer. You know, if you do feel a bit of a prat, it's better to be a prat with someone else than on your own. That most people are really supportive, because if they don't draw themselves, do you know what? Someone drawing is like a superpower. People are just really impressed. And if they do draw, they know the struggle and they will take their hats off to you. So if the best artist in the world happens to come along and see what you're doing, is there such a thing as a best artist in the world? No, there isn't. But should they, and they come along, they will take their hat off to you because they know the struggle. So no one's out to get you. No one's out to diss you. They are sometimes on YouTube, but it is a really windy day. In real life, people are supportive, and if they go round the corner and go, God, that was a hot mess, well, you're not going to hear them. It doesn't matter. So I would just say, put your brave head on and just give it a go. The other thing that's really nice to do is to go out with, say, your local urban sketchers group. They're usually organised through Facebook, and if you just Google urban sketches near me, you'll find a group. So I live about 7-8 miles from Reading, and we've got really quite a nice active urban sketches that meets once a month for sure. And that's nice because you meet up in a particular area, get to know a new area as well that maybe you wouldn't go to. And then once you've sketched for an hour, hour and a half, whatever, you tend to meet in a coffee shop, have a look at what everyone else has done. You look at their supplies because everyone's got a new pen or a different something different, and you learn from each other, and it's just an incentive to get out and about. So I think urban sketches are lovely. So my question is, do I need to do more? I just want to, I think that is strong and comes forward. That's fine. I think the house actually needs a little bit more precise paint. So I'm just grabbing my layers. I think it needs more, slightly more concentrated with the burnt sienna, just to bring this sort of forward a little and to give a little more texture here. So you are telling a story with your drawing. You know, you look, and the more you look, the more you see, and maybe, again, that might be quite nice to sort of bring some of that yellow in here because it is a beautiful sunny day, even though it is very, very windy. So might just be nice to bring some of that. It's looking a bit autumnal, to be honest, for the middle of just how, I think because I've used those sort of oranges and yellows there, I've made this look autumnal, but never mind. So it doesn't have to be perfect. I wasn't setting out to do a fantastic sort of finished piece. You know, I'm not sort of going to knock on the house owner's door and say, do you want to buy my picture? This is for me, for fun, for exploring. Oops, I think I'm running out of water in my, yeah, I am. So it's always a good idea to have a spare brush. Oh, that's huge. Look at that. I'm not going to do anything precise with that, am I? Didn't realise when I picked that one up that it might be quite good for bricks. Look at that. See, this is what I meant about it does make you improvise because you've got such limited materials. Let's put, just going to put a little bit of red through here as well. It's quite fun. I'll be interested to see how long this has taken. I think we must be on about sort of 30, maybe 40 minutes. Just going to bring some green over here to stop this looking quite as autumnal. But if you are, as I say, you can very easily work in this way with layers, different media, building it up. If you want to do that, that's rather lovely. I'm just going to put some of the moss on the roof with the, while I've got a bit of that green on. Quite liking actually some of those bigger marks, just as something a bit different here. Yeah, I'll stop there. This is a few days later, and here's the final picture. I got home and the only thing I did to it was to use a grey pen just on the left side around that little bit of roof sticking out, just to tone it down because it was a bit bright white. And I went on to do another picture the same day, so there's a film of this if you're interested. And I have completed this side of my concertina sketchbook. But because the paper is really quite nice in here, I say it's 300 GSM, I can just turn it over and paint on the other side, which of course I will do.